Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Hillsborough Town Board of Commissioners. I won't read the public charge regarding good conduct during the meeting, but it is printed in the agenda for here tonight. So are there any comments, Tanya?
No, that's for the comments or public.
Thank you. On to number 3, the agenda, changes and approval. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Evelyn. All in favor? Any opposed? And next on the agenda is number 4. We're going to have a public hearing regarding financing for the 86 North facility renovation. Formally open public hearing. Okay,
Open the public hearing.
Kathleen, thank you, Matt. All in favor? Any opposed? Today, there you are. Come on up.
Sorry, skim through that fairly quickly.
Good evening, board. The reason why we're having a public hearing is we're looking to do a public financing for the 86 North project. It's going to be dealing with expansion of the facility and also renovations. And it's going to be, in our documents, it was 4.5 million, more, a little bit more, a little bit less than that. But based off the bids that we received, it looks like the borrowing is going to be less than that, probably right around $3.6 million. And with that said, that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're looking to do, and have the public comment on it if they so wish.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Sounds pretty straightforward. Does anybody have questions today on the financing?
No, just a little bit slow.
Dave, so it was thought that we would have to borrow 4.5, or what's the number that you gave?
It's going to be I want to pin it down to an exact amount, but it's going to be around 3.6 million, all said and done. So we got ahead of ourselves. We had a budgeted amount of 4.5 million for the project, but then the bids came in, and initially we're going to use fund balance to cash. We're going to cash flow it, but it was determined that it'd be better not knowing what, from an economic perspective, what we're facing down the road with tariffs and whatnot, that how it might impact the economy. So I think it was a prudent decision to preserve that fund balance and just go out and borrow the funds instead. So that's why the amount was higher initially, and that's what was budgeted for the project. So but we have the bids in hand, and we know that we're going to need to borrow less than that. And I'll let Eric jump in if he has anything on that.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the decision to not pay cash for it and to do financing a little bit more during the budget presentation.
Yeah.
You see the year 3 fund balance number, you'll understand why. And also our bond counsel is here, Bob Jessup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Dave? Question to close the public hearing.
So,
Kathleen?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Dave. Okay. Yeah. All right. Bowie Innovation Service Excellence.
Sarah. Oh, and I want to thank Sarah. She, my name was on the abstract that described this, but she really did it and explained the changes. Appreciate the HR team and Sarah working with all the employees, and we did surveys to get feedback what can we do to improve the program. So she summarized the changes that we had made. So over the years, usually this meeting was when we recognized the employees. So one of the pieces of feedback we got from the employees was they would rather do it during the workday, and appreciate we had about half the board show up, and the employees really appreciated that. So this will be the Cliff Notes version. We weren't going to do this, and Commissioner Ferguson said that she thought it would be a good idea for us to do it. So I'll go through the awards a little bit quicker. And as usual, our communications team is going to get out more detailed information on the accomplishments of our employees. So we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, and I left my notes there, so we'll see how good my memory is. I want to thank we rotate members on the committee every year. So Commissioner Ferguson was our representative from the Town Board of Commissioners. Ross Green was our resident member. He had been through our Government 101. Corwin Hess, who's our lab director at the wastewater treatment plant, was the employee representative. Sarah basically leads the program and facilitated the committee as we went through and evaluated the awards. We also had Stephanie Trueblood and myself. Am I forgetting anybody? Wow. All right. All right. So good. Thank the committee. So our first award winner of the bronze was Sergeant. Everybody knows Scott Foster, and he's just completed his 25th year with the town of Hillsborough back in March. And this was the Adopt with a Cop program. You probably recall the Facebook postings last year where our officers were featured with the Orange County Animal Shelter, posing with the animals to try to encourage folks to adopt. So that was a very cool program. Our high school internship program, we had been using high school interns in the Public Works Department, and then found out that as far as the tasks that needed to be done wasn't the best alignment. So Lindsay, who provides support for Public Works, Public Space, Planning Department, it said like, hey, I'll take this on. And she sought out opportunities that better aligned with what the high school students were interested in doing, came up with a scope of work, was able to supervise them, to give them enough leeway that they had flexibility to go out and do things. And that relieved workload from our Public Works team, as well as we didn't have to pay contractors to do as much of the work that they were doing. So, and Lindsay doesn't usually supervise folks, so this was definitely outside of her scope, but she did a phenomenal job and definitely earned her award. On the intern theme, Eli Valsing, our HR analyst, whether it's high school, undergrad, all the way to graduate level programs, she is always out going to job fairs and interacting with the actual schools and the programs, and then reaching out to all the departments, either going, what do you need? Or this is how you could benefit from this. So that's the background on Eli's recognition. A little bit more here in the innovation. The police need to have like secure shredding bins. So I said it in the media, I won't use the manufacturer's name. There's a company that provides this service, we're all aware. So it would cost $1,300 a year if we did this and they came monthly and picked it up. So Danielle King, administrative support specialist, and Lieutenant Chalenza teamed up. So it's $1,300 a year versus $300 one time to basically buy bins, figure out how to cable them and secure them so they could be locked. And then we just basically end up doing it ourselves. So that was a big savings and an ongoing basis for us, and creative. All right, Innovation Silver Awards. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the homicide that happened at the end of last year. So one of the innovations that came out of that was surveillance. There was a suspect, and they wanted to be able to keep an eye on the suspect afterwards and to not raise any suspicions. So they were able to. Sergeant Gregory came up with bought a camera. A power supply. Basically, the power supply was cool. They used one of the jump packs that we use for jump starting the vehicles, and a MiFi connected them all together so it would play directly, and the officers could monitor from their phone away. And so that was like extremely creative and was helpful in being able to solve this case moving forward. So great job by Sergeant Gregory. All right, and we did the announcement with Facilities Coordinator Rod Jones award the other day. I can't remember what the highest amount is for cost savings, but this is definitely one of the highest ones. You may recall in our budget, I think it was like last year, it was like $120,000 to replace the elevator in the police department. And that was like sort of a shock for all of us. So Rod would not give up on that. And he was digging and digging and digging. We were having problems with it and found out. So the root cause of a lot of the problems with the elevator was the motherboard and the software. And you can't get them anymore because I don't know how long ago they stopped manufacturing them. So somehow Rod found these, bought them, and we have them in a secure place in the town. There was about $10,000. So when those units finally crash, we have a backup plan. And anyway, so Rod saved us over $100,000. It'd been easy for him to just say, "Oh, too bad," but that was it's a lot of money. So a well-earned Silver Innovation Award for Rod.
I'm just struck by the fact there's software for elevators that would not have been on my budget.
Yeah. You start thinking.
Montgomery Elevator used to be a plant actually.
Always think about like businesses, and the town is a business, and it's amazing how many different operations. You don't have many businesses that have such a variety of services and responsibilities. All right, everybody knows about our big website conversion that we did last year, and that was a massive job. Well, part of it was like, oh, we need to update the employee intranet while we were in it. And then discovered like, oh, well, we'll contract that out too. So the bid we got was $22,500. And JC, who's conveniently sitting right over there, said, I think I can do this. Got up with HR, got up with the other key staff, talked, understood what they wanted, and in very short order, did it on his own. Saved us $22,000. So awesome job to JC. And by the way, you got in the MPA program? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you got in. So he's applied to the UNC MPA program. So I'm sorry to get ahead of myself. So. All right, Service Excellence, our Bronze Awards. And Danielle King, I told her she gets the trifecta. She gets one more after this. Had a citizen come to the police department. They had a debit card was about $1,600 or $1,800 on it, and that was how they were basically helping provide for their family. And someone got the debit card number and completely emptied the debit card, and it was six purchases in New York City, and it just totally emptied it out at an ATM. And the resident went to somebody else. They said, "We can't help you." So Danielle basically walked her through the entire process, how to report this, how to handle it, and provided her in the direction for other assistance. And so she just did a phenomenal job, and something she just does on a regular basis. As I said last week, if we gave a lifetime achievement award, Tom King would earn that. Tom's always like stay in early, stays late. We had a citizen recognize him. He had two very difficult situations that had to get solved, where people had built a pool and a deck into a setback area, and he was able to work with all the parties to help solve or mitigate the seriousness of the problem. There's another serious problem he had. So we just regularly get feedback from what a great job Tom does, communicates clearly, extremely patient. So he well-earned Bronze Award. Again, lifetime achievement, he would have got a gold on that. So the promotional video for the my brain is not working. The Odie Street Green Infrastructure Drainage Project. One of the requirements for the $140,000+ grant we got was that we needed to do a video and document that. So Cheryl Assad Grove jumped in, basically helped coach everybody through it, did an amazing job. We've all seen it, and not one of her regular duties, but she does a lot of video work, and this was just outstanding. So congrats to Cheryl. The Everbridge update. Once we got through the website, we'd found out like how old and stale our basically our emergency call out numbers were. This is one of the backbone of our emergency operations, is to be able to reach out to all of our residents, whether it's in we can target small areas or hit regions or hit the entire amount of town. So JC, Cheryl, and Catherine Wright, the communications manager, went through and reconciled all that, put it all together, got it updated. It was a tremendous amount of work. They even used an intern over the summer to help them through, and then started getting people to get all their stuff updated. So big success story. All right, Service Excellence Silver. Hurricane Relief Drive, again, Danielle King and Sergeant Candace Spraggins, they loaded up 3 large U-Haul trucks to send to Western North Carolina. They did it on short order, and they also made multiple trips on their own to Western North Carolina to assist people in need. So congratulations and thanks for all their efforts there. The artwork installation assistance, there was a crane that was coming in to deliver and to set up one of the major pieces of artwork in River Park, and it did not make it. So as we say with our public works crews, they embody the and other duties as necessitated. So figuring out how to get a crane and set that up in a safe manner that made sure everybody else was protected was a big help for the Uproar Festival, which everybody knows is a major, county tourist attraction and brings everybody in and highlights our arts community. So Jacob Good, Daniel Hunt, Jesse Weeks, and Walson Williams all did a fantastic job. And thanks and well deserved to them. The double homicide we mentioned at the end of last year. So Sergeant Gregory, officers Jones and Morales, they worked for almost 3 weeks. They worked on their off time. They worked overtime, doing a tremendous amount of interviews. They maintained communications with the DA's office, the judge, doing interviews and working extremely hard. When you have a tragedy like this that occurred, it's unfortunate. Sometimes the best that you can do is to not just bring justice, but to help the families to bring some sort of closure. And they effectively did that. And from what I understand from talking to our police department, they went way above what would go into, not that there's a normal homicide, but just did a fantastic job in bringing this to conclusion very quickly. So fantastic job. And thank you for making Hillsborough a safer place. Our gold awards, service excellence, the big website, and I can't remember, maybe JC will remember what the date was. I remember I was getting updates from staff, like we got relatively short notice. We can no longer support your website. You've got to get it done by June 30th. We don't care if you're ready or not, we're gone. Was basically, and so Catherine Wright and the team started working on it, went through the bidding process, got selected the contractor, and whatever the date was they gave, Catherine and the team's going, no, it's getting done in about half of that time. And they worked with the contractor, brought them along and spent a tremendous amount of hours for months just so we could get it on time. And as far as like these website changeovers go, this one went relatively smoothly. And as we always say, our communications team, they are our internal firefighters. There's not a hot issue that goes on town that they don't get involved in. So they were having to deal with that and everything else that goes on. So huge thanks to not just the communications team, but Marshall Grayson from the police department helped, as well as Sarah and Jen Della Valle. Just did an amazing job pulling everybody together. So, all right, thanks everybody, and congratulations on your gold award. And I believe the last award for the evening is the Hurricane Helene recovery deployment. So we had 3 different groups that went out there. The initial team that went out for 2 weeks to Asheville was made up of Public Works, Utilities, and our fleet staff. And then we had a second group, which was, when I say group, was JC. He was the Public Information Officer in Avery County for a week. If you recall, safety officers and public information officers were the #1 requested asset that they were asking for in Western North Carolina. And then Troy Miller went to Asheville twice for backflow prevention. They had I forgot the number in Asheville. It was like thousands, maybe even 8,000 places that needed to be inspected. So he went up there. So we had Brett Anderson from Utility, Jacob Good, Public Works, Jimmy Hammond, Equipment Operator, Public Works, Dustin Hill, our manager from Public Works, Daniel Hunt, Equipment Operator, of course, JC, Communication Specialist, Troy from Backflow, Frank Moore from Fleet Mechanic. And you always bring a fleet person when you take a lot of equipment. They're your MVP because it's not if, but when things go down. And Tyler Parker from Utility Systems and Jesse Weeks from Public Works. So we couldn't be prouder of them. And as we said, there's nothing more important when you're a community in need and you see those trucks and equipment and cars coming in from other places to help you. It's uplifting and it means a lot. And our staff gained a tremendous amount of experience. which hopefully we don't have to use it in a response, but we probably will someday. So they've already been tutoring us on what we can do to do better for our community. And that's the end. So.
Thank you, Eric. Join me in giving them a round.
All right.
I'd like to also thank everybody who participated in the process, all the staff who were considered, and all the staff who were recognizing you for their work. Their commitment to Hillsborough and Western North Carolina is amazing. It's like one of the top reasons for wanting to be involved in the town government is to be able to work with people like we have. Okay, moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Kathleen, thank you. Evelyn, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are on to number 7A on the regular agenda. Resolution supporting an application to the Local Government Commission for approval of financial agreement for the 86 North facility renovation and improvement. At our public hearing, and
We have to close.
we already did, we opened input. I guess there are no more questions. Kathleen's made a motion to approve the resolution. Matt?
I do have,
We get seconded and we can do this. Second.
I do have, kind of one question, that goes to the resolution. I was like, well, we'll have more conversation, when we get to it. But, so we think that the cost of the project, or however much we need to finance, is 3.6.
Yeah.
The resolution calls out the 4.5 number, but then says that we'll have another resolution to settle on the number. So what is the benefit of passing a resolution with that higher figure tonight?
I know, like in past financing and in this financing too, normally when you're looking at the financing, you're thinking, all right, how much are we going to need to borrow? You're waiting to see the bids in hand and also what the financing costs are going to be. So you always like to be maybe a little bit higher. We were you could say a little bit higher there, but things were moving fast. And, we determined we were going to switch from cash flowing it to going ahead and doing the financing. So, what we had set in the budget, the documents we provided our financial advisors and also our bond counsel were the 4.5 million. And, again, I always think it's better to have that number a little bit higher because, I've worked in the past that the bids might come in a heck of a lot higher than what you think the project's going to be. Then you got to re-engineer the project or whatnot. But in this case, the bids came in at a decent amount less than what we thought they were going to be. And again, it was around 3.6. We're still trying to. The other part of the financing is you're also looking at the financing costs. We have to pay our bond counsel. We have to pay also the bond counsel of the bank that we're ultimately going to be doing business with. And there's other ancillary costs, LGC application fees, things along those lines that are also factored in that would be could be included in the financing, or you could cash flow some of that too, depending on how you want to handle it.
So the process, so walking through the process a little bit.
Sure.
And maybe it's just I read this one a lot more in depth.
Yeah.
So with the 4.5 versus the 3.6, obviously there's wiggle room in that. So are you going out to market with the $4.5 amount, or is that just, walk me through how that part works?
Let me try to answer, and I think there may be something missing. So the project cost all in is about 4.5 million.
Okay.
We're only borrowing about $3.5 million cash that we already had in the project fund. That was basically the Valley Forge Road reimbursement that we had put in there. So it's the 3.5 financing and 4.5. So the project is 4.5.
Okay.
And that includes, as Dave said, the bids that we've already got, which the bids actually came in under, which is like rare that happens. There's the issuance cost, and then there's you got to buy furniture, and then there's a contingency and everything in there. So it is 4.5. Yeah,
And
everything.
And we're going to cash flow less of that. And so that's why we have the higher number, because we got to figure out how much we will flow.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to speak out of turn. I think it was determined that okay, we have the funds from the Valley Forge that it freed up some funds that we had, which was close to $1 million. So it was like, all right, we identified some funds that we could use to offset the the cost of the borrowing or having to borrow more. So that's a good point. When we were doing the documents, so the thought was we maybe have to borrow the 4.5 million. That's why there's a difference because we've identified funds since then that will reduce our reliance to have to borrow funds from a bank.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and when they start the project, we're not going to have the money in hand yet. So we'll have $1 million and we'll start writing checks from that. And we can talk about if things change, but we will probably spend all of that if it turns out instead of borrowing 3.5. And this happens all the time. Of course, we have other experts in the room that know more than I do. There's provisions in it. You said, oh, we only needed to borrow 3.1. Then you can either, there's different things you can do with that. So
It's always good not to use a not to exceed amount, in my opinion, because I've been in situations where we thought it was going to come in lower and it didn't, and we could point to resolutions saying, okay, we have this much more not to exceed. So you don't want to go super high, but at the time we did these documents, the idea was we would borrow 4.5, but then it changed, in the process when once the documents came to the board for approval.
Thank you, thank you, Matt. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
So
On to item B, fiscal year 26-28 recommended budget presentation. Eric, we'll have those.
Guess that could work this time.
fine.
I have to use the mouse.
Okay, no problem. So, thank you. I'll sit here for meetings and not say anything. Now you're going to you get tired of me from having to speak too much tonight. As usual, when I'm going to go ahead and do an overview of the budget presentation, hopefully that'll make it easier for you when you get the budget here in the next day or two. So I'm encouraging the budget team members to interrupt me because I will misspeak and I am going to forget important things. So I just let them know, hey, jump in so we can go ahead and kind of hit the highlights for you. Some of these things are going to be like you'll have seen them before. We talked about them in the retreat. One advantage of the 3-year plan. So a lot of things you've already seen, and we just kind of keep marching it forward. So we'll go over, and I'm not going to read the slides, but I'm going to go ahead and just hit some of the highlights as we move forward. Oh, okay. Thank you. There we go. All right, we'll do that. Of course, in addition to the direction that we received from the board during the retreat and throughout the year, the strategic plan is something we refer to on a regular basis to make sure that we're providing the resources necessary to carry out the board's initiatives and strategic priorities. And Jen will give you an update a little bit this evening. All right, one thing, of course, it's a reval year, so there's lots of questions and concern from folks, which we don't deal with the revaluation part. We deal with the setting the rate part. So, of course, we're currently at 60.7 cents. We are by statute, by law in North Carolina, required to calculate the revenue neutral rate and tell everybody what that is. And so revenue neutral tells us basically that's the amount of money we would have brought in had there not been a revaluation on that number, which is the 45.6 cents. So the proposed rate is 51.3 cents. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. So basically, you were seeing the tax rate drop 9.4 cents. Of course, things sort of equalize. That's a way of compensating partially compensating for the values going up. The tax rate goes down. So that effectively equates to a 5.7 cent tax rate increase. And the new number, we've rounded it off. It's a little bit over that, but it's about $220,000. So one of the challenges for the board, and I know your focus is going to be as you go through and review the general fund budget, is like, are the resources provided for what we want to do? And are these things necessary? Are there things that need to get pushed out? So, 5.7 cents is more of a tax rate than we wanted. But if you recall, when we were at the budget retreat, the number we were looking at was 14 cents, and that was just to cover our continuation budget. So as I walk through, a lot of things I'm going to talk through is like, how did we go from over 14 cents down to 5.7 cents? And there were sacrifices that had to be made. So I will try to identify those. As the board, when you're looking at it, there may be things that you feel are important enough that you would want to go up on the rate, or things that aren't as important, you would want to go down and make adjustments. But that's a starting point for us.
But the 1 penny generates 220,000. Is that based on current rate, neutral rate, proposed rate?
That will be based. That's based on the new valuation.
Sorry,
Valuation. Yep. All right. So you can see a graph going back to 2011. So the good news is, over a long period of time, it's trended down. My first fiscal year here was I came in 97, and our rate was in the mid 50s. So this is the lowest actual tax rate that I can recall in decades. So anyway, that's on the upside. So one of the other things that's been interesting, and we talked about this at the retreat, I'll talk about it in a second. So what's the impact? So I just picked $400,000 home value, put the arrows to make it easy. So what does that mean coming out of people's wallets? That's if you've got a $400,000 home, the 5.7 cent tax increase over revenue neutral is $19 a month or $228 a year. So that's the actual impact. So this was the chart we used a few months ago and just talked about Wake County. Just last year went through a reval, and plenty of other units and several other counties in the area are going through revaluations now. And it was striking that all of the units in Wake County last year raised their rates above revenue neutral, and their average rate increase was about 7.5 cents. And while we're not excited about recommending, I'm not at the 5.7. It's definitely better than what Wake County did, but similar. And I was reading this evening that Pittsboro, their tax rate is 44 cents. Revenue neutral is 34 cents. They're not changing their tax rate. They're not dropping it at all. And there's other units that we're hearing about in the area are having like really high rate increases. So we were discussing here in this room several months ago, like, why is that happening? And so I don't know that anybody knows exactly, but this is the same chart we talked about. I think there's a lot of cases of post-COVID catch-up is described there. Growth pressure. A lot of places are under a lot of pressure and having to spend a lot of money, and we've been experiencing that, maybe on a smaller scale, but percentage-wise, we're feeling it. The impacts of inflation all the way across the board, whether it's personnel, operating expenses. We're going to talk a little bit about the flatlining of sales tax has been really hurtful, and as far as tightening up our revenue supply and just the labor market again. So those are just some general ideas. And we talked about earlier the sales tax. Hey, we were able to do a lot of things for quite a while, and so were other people as things peaked on sales tax, like in FY22. But again, major shout out to Emily Bradford, our budget director, and Josh Fernandez, our budget and management analyst. They were on it last year, and as you can see, like, we went ahead and basically projected that no increase in sales tax for this year. If anything, I think we projected a slight drop. Other folks in the area projected increases. We've talked to other units go, hey, we thought we were being conservative at 3%, and they were having a hard time. Other units did a 5% increase and really having a hard time. But so we've flatlined it. So we say, once again, it's easier to not spend the money or spend money later on if you think you've got it than doing a mid-year cut. So we've just gone ahead and basically predicted for FY26 a slight decrease, and then going back up to zero. If things are a lot better, well, that's great. Then maybe that helps us in different ways going down the road. So we're being conservative, we hope, on sales tax. And that's the most elastic revenue source we have. All right, looking at the bottom line. Is it working? No, it's not showing up. All right, so let's look at the surplus or deficits going across starting in FY25. So look, hey, this year FY25 over $1 million surplus. That's awesome, but actually, it's would be $160,000 deficit. I've mentioned the $1 million from the Valley Forge Road that we had in the NC 86 project that was already there. There was also money that we had transferred, another 1.2 million as part of that project fund. Because we were financing, as we just talked about, that 1.2 million is going back into the general fund, which is very helpful. So anyway, so we're really looking at probably a structural $160,000 deficit this year. FY26, that looks pretty good. It's been a long time since we were able to get as close to break even as possible and use a minimal amount of fund balance for our budget year one. But as you can see, FY27, looking at an $800,000+ deficit, then up to 1.3 million. Fortunately, our fund balance was strong. By financing 86 North and making that change, it bolstered that. And again, we've talked about Hurricane Helene. We've got to make sure it's just a reminder of how important it is to keep money in the bank, because there's so many units in Western North Carolina. They ran out of funds. They can't respond. And FEMA doesn't write you a check on the spot. It often takes years to get your funding back. So we've got to keep our reserves strong, and that's what this does. So the 5.7 over revenue neutral puts us in a pretty good position by year three. But if those deficit trends continue, shortly thereafter, we're going to have to make some sort of adjustment if this turns out to be accurate plan. All right. Is growth the answer? We talked about that. After the retreat, we had a discussion. So Emily and Josh dug in and came up with some interesting information. So the 3-year plan that we're looking at has about a 3% expense increase, or about $590,000 a year. That's tracking. You can, depend on what inflation projections you look at for the next several years, you could easily say we're spending at or below inflation rate. So it's pretty close. Just to keep up with that amount, we would need, of course, we're not getting this, you would need 3% sales tax growth plus either 200 new homes at $500,000 value, or instead of the homes, 785 multifamily units. We would need those every single year just to keep up with the cost of inflation. So can growth help us? We've got a lot in the pipeline that's been slow to come. It will provide some relief, but it's not going to provide all the relief. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of our other options of what we're going to do to limit the impact on the tax rate. Last year, when we addressed the employees and we started the budget season, I asked everybody, if you recall, please do everything you can to avoiding any new FTEs, full-time equivalent employees. We will probably come into situations where we have to do it, but let's try to avoid it. So last year in the budget the board adopted, there was only one FTE. That was to provide administrative support in the utilities department for engineer, and that was a good move. Going forward, these next 3 years, we have no new FTEs in any department for 3 years. That when you're in a town that's growing and adding new homes and you're flatlining it and the projection is for 3 years, that is a significant cost control effort. And I really want to applaud the employees. They've been coming up with different ideas. They're having conversations, and not just how to do that, but the next one, which is operating cost control. As the board and you're reviewing the budget and looking across, just take a few minutes and just look at the operational expenses, go across the multiple years, and you will be amazed. I was at how many it's flat, little bump, what's going on, but there's a reason. The departments did an amazing job on cost control on all of our operations. The same thing you'll see in the water fund. Either we didn't add new capital projects or found ways to push them out and spread them out, which was not easy to do. The employees have always been good. When they see these constraints and they understand our limitations, they get creative. And we'll be tapping into that going forward. We already talked in the upper right-hand corner about having to do the switch from paying cash to doing the financing on 86 North. We're doing a combination. We're still doing $1 million of cash. Talked about just limiting the capital expenses. Talked about that. So I'm going to save the ramp up discussion for just a second because that's important, and I've got a chart on that. The Hillsborough is a creative place. This is an awesome place to live. There's so much new going on here. We could have discussions about all the great things we could doing forward. I don't know how to say it more clearly. It's like we have stretched our resources to the max. So if I or staff or somebody else has a great idea of something we're going to do and it's a substantive amount of money, we have to have a conversation. It's like, what are we going to get rid of? What are we going to put off? Or how are we going to come up with funds to do this? Things and situations change, but if it's anything of substance, we need to put it in a parking lot or really deliberated and think about it. So our job one is paying for everything we've committed to take care of what you got, plus all the things we've got that are amazing in the pipeline. And what you're going to see in a second is that the tax rate increase over revenue neutral that's being proposed will hold us probably for a few years. But once we hit to year 4, right on the outside, we've got major things that are coming up. Part of the, hey, it's going to be over 14 cents to do this was pushing off some of these expenses and waiting to save and waiting to pay to 4 years out. The board may not like that. You may want to do it a different way. But things like train station, fire station, ridge walk, and fire trucks, where we are ramping up saving money for that, we froze those or stopped saving or said we weren't going to do it to bring that tax rate increase down, to give us some options and give us some time to figure out how to do that. Probably should have had that other slide after there. Just as a quick reminder, you've seen a different slide like this in the past when we're talking about how important it is to control cost, and personnel is one of them. It's unfortunate because we're under pressure, we're growing, yet we're having to not add more personnel. And I just randomly took 60,000 covers a lot of our key positions, and FICA, state retirement. The reason I have the arrow there, the local government employees credit system starting back in 21, they have been increasing our contribution that we make on behalf of employees by 1% a year. That doesn't sound bad, going from 12 to 13, but really this year it's more like 7% impact. So they're going from 12 to 17% in a period of 5 years, and they had ramped it up before. I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it was like 6 or 8%. So that's been a huge impact.
That's being proposed, or is this the increase that's in place now? Because I did read that there's yet another increase that's in some of the legislation that made problems.
Okay, so the data that I just saw from like a week ago was that it has been adopted. Like I think as of today, we're at 14.1%, and then like July 1, it'll be 15.1%. But anyway, and then the proposed increases for the next couple of years after that continues to ratchet it up to be able to maintain the solvency of the fund. So, but the point being is like that number, that 9,060 for that, it's going to continue going up. So we've had to spend a lot of money in recent years by retirement contributions going up. Everything else you can see, workers' comp, property and liability, that's a round number for every person we add. So we start talking about it's like almost $90,000 a year. But then if you have to buy a truck or a computer or a desk or whatever over a 5-year period, which is how we like to look at things, what's the cost impact? So a lot of times when we hire somebody, it's over $500,000 for a 5-year period, depending on what their salary is and what type of equipment they need. So that's, again, the emphasis on cost control is trying to do the best we can to maintain a level with our FTE count. All right, this is the ramp up savings, and you may want to ask me questions later, but this was a key part in how we were able to bring the tax rate increase down to a more tolerable level. So going down in the ramp up has been an awesome program. It's allowed us to like start off with small savings amounts, increase it every year until we get up to the level where we can match what a debt service payment's going to be. If you don't do that, other things crowded out. Let's do X, let's do Y. This is an awesome thing. And then you never get to what things that are our top priorities. In addition to ramping up and being able to have the funds to make those big debt service payments, you've also accrued cash in the meantime. It means you can borrow less money and you can pay for things up front. It's been great. So this was a difficult call. We'll go one line at a time. Fire station, we have been going up $75,000 a year. This current fiscal year in 25, we are putting $300,000 into the project fund for the new fire station, which will move the downtown station. We were scheduled, as you could see, to go up to 375 and keep ramping it up until we could get up to the debt amount. So that's an option. The board could say, we really like this. It's probably the equivalent of about 3/4 of a penny per year just for the fire station to keep adding that on. Right now, the plan just keeps it level. We would continue contributing the $300,000 per year instead of going up. Ridgewalk, similar thing. You can see the numbers. Train station, we weren't doing a ramp up, but you can see that that's the $285,000 in the column out there. That's what the annual debt service amount is going to be on the $2.1 or $2.2 million we're going to have to borrow for the train station project for our portion. Fire engine and ladder, we had planned to start doing the ramp up. Fire engine replacement in FY30 at 800 and something thousand, and then in FY32 replacing the ladder over $2 million. So we were trying to ramp up because those are big numbers. We've already got the $663,000 that we've got. We'll continue adding that each year. So, but anyway, you can see the amount that we're going to have, the deficit as far as covering these annual debt service payments is $1.6 million. So what we're saying is that's looming out on the horizon right now up to year, 29 to 32. That's the equivalent of 7 cents on the tax rate. So that's a big way that we chop this down. And you can see the tax impact in FY29. We're looking at over 4 cents if we can't come up with another revenue source for the fire station, Ridgewalk, and the train station. 3 major priorities. We call this the restaurant menu approach of budgeting. If you can point your finger to it and you know what you're getting for it, that's the cost of it, moving forward. And then you see the impact on the other fire trucks going on there. So again, so we'll start talking about some of the specific things. Just a lot of equipment replacement. I think Emily, our budget director, used it like this budget's really a continuation budget. You're not going to see much new things, probably not going to see anything new that's really expensive. It's more of take care of what you got. What do we need to do to keep the daily operations and services going? And that's what things we've got, like replacing these really expensive yet critical trucks. You probably said when you get your budget, this is cool. This interchangeable dump body. So if you remember, we bought a knuckle boom truck this year, and the body unloads because we only use not the knuckle boom. It was the leaf truck, right? Yeah, the leaf truck. We only use the leaf truck a few months out of the year, and then it just sits there. So we can dump the leaf body, and now they're going to have a dump body, so we can use these bodies interchangeably throughout the year. And these chassis are like usually really robust. So kudos to Dustin Hill, Public Works Manager, getting more bang for our buck and not having to buy a far more expensive piece of equipment. So anyway, you can see the other things that are they're on the roll of the continuation list, including our street paving at the 5% of street miles. Police and fire, and you'll read more about the details on this. There's some really interesting things that will help our officers on just their day-to-day duties, and just replacing things like our in-car camera system is really important and it's expensive. We were going to try to replace it this year. This is another one of many things that we just pushed off a little bit, but that'll start in year 2. And also really cool that we've got the vehicle replacement funds that Emily and Josh are able to figure out, these sinking funds where we put money into it every year to kind of smooth out our cost of replacing all the equipment. So we're buying about 3 to 4 police cars per year. And fire, our contract with Orange Rural, their expenses are going up. So we've increased our contribution to them for 5%, and then figuring out how to pay for it. Oh, and then you can read about the POPAT, which is the Police Officer Physical Ability Test. We used to pay a bonus for the officers doing this. And so this is something that Interim Chief Wynn and I talked about, and we want to reinstitute the bonus for the officers. it's something that I don't feel is like reflected in your regular salary. And that POPAT test is hard, and you've got to work out all year round to stay in shape to get through it. And I think that providing a relatively small amount of bonus for our officers per year as recognition and a small incentives for them meeting that standard that's a job requirement is important. All right. General fund, affordable housing. We're continuing the ramp up. The board had adopted schedule. It's going up another 75,000 to 250 this year. And then next year would take it up to the goal amount, which was 320 was the equivalent of the old 2 cents. So next year in 27, you'll reach the dollar threshold that the board's been working towards. So System Manager, Community Services Director Matt Eford has put together an option for the board to consider in your discussions. There's some money that's sitting aside that we've been accruing for housing creation, and there'll be information in your budget to talk about, would you like to do one-time contribution for home repair and rehab, emergency housing assistance, and I believe there's another related topic on affordable housing that may come up as an option that you'll want to talk about. The community reinvestment or nonprofits, that amount is remained flat. The board can adjust that if you would like, and then you can see the other contributions that we've had that have been in the budget. A little bit more public record software in a couple of years out. That's a lower cost item, but we have really, I mean, I don't know, Sarah maybe has lost count of how many public records requests we've got. It's a tremendous amount of time for her. It's complicated and the whole staff. So if things continue to be crazy, we may accelerate that. But right now we've left it in year 3, continuing the code enforcement, some major facilities upgrades. The reason it's in general government is that that's where our facilities management is located. So we're taking care of some of our facilities. Story walk for Gold Park and basketball court design starts in year FY27 year 2. Moving into stormwater, only got one slide here. Just want to remind everybody that when we decided to phase the $45 increase over 3 years, 15, 15, and 15. So this current year we're in, this is the first time we had raised the stormwater rates since the fund was created back in FY18. And then the non-residential tiers, they go up proportionally. So this year we'll go from 90 to 105, continuing that. As far as pay attention to the deficit amounts, the FY28 fund balance is down to 23%. Not quite as critical because it's a smaller operation. There's not as much elasticity and types of things we have to do. So I'm not as worried about that number getting low. Like we definitely wouldn't want to get it below 15%. But so we're getting in the area by year 3. We're gonna have to make some further decisions. We're also doing a contribution for the Elizabeth Brady Road culvert rehab. They'll talk about how they do that. We don't want to put that off because we don't want to be in a situation like Valley Forge Road where we wait too long and then it becomes a major problem. That's not as deep. So we're working on that. And then they bank $25,000 a year that can be put towards other projects or saving up. So 3 things are unfunded. We're aware of the Cameron and East Queen Street impact analysis, which has come up. You got emails about that recently from the property owners down there. That's currently not in the budget. The budget request is in there. So the board, you'll probably want to talk and deliberate on whether or not you want to move that from unfunded to funded, and if so, where, or if you're going to do it, how would we pay for it? So the equipment operator and the jet vac truck were cut and pushed off the 3-year plan. All right, water and sewer charges. Our plan was to move forward at 7.5% each. That's what we're doing again this year. When you're reading through it, the numbers on the water side look pretty rough, especially going in years 2 and year 3. Years 2 and 3 on water only go up to 12.5%. Still don't put us in a great position, but when you're looking at the numbers, it's like, I don't know how we just, that's something we're going to have to consider going forward. Right. As far as the rate impact goes, So 2,000 is the minimum gallon amount. And as we've learned, about 45% of our customers use the minimum or less. So you can see how much on the right side, whether you're in or out of town, it would go up. So $1.72 for a minimum user on water, $2.44 water. And then on 4,000, it was double that. Interesting. So Emily was having a conversation with Rafthalis Financial. That's what they do. They work with water and sewer all the time. And they commented when they're working on the other study we've got that 8% is about the average increase they're seeing across the board. I'm sure it goes up and down. We don't have a spreadsheet on that, but that was their take about on what's going on across the state this year. You can see the numbers here going across. As far as the fund balance appropriation also equals the deficit. So this year we're at $2.4 million deficit. We've got a lot going on, but fortunately the rate increases are helping bring it down and making it more modest and more manageable. One thing that is a concern is the days of cash on hand. A few years ago, you can see in FY24, we were at 428. We were in the 650 range, 650 days for a long time. We can talk later. We don't need to do it tonight about the calculation of how they get to that number. Our preference is to stay at 360. So that number is still okay. But if you have someone tell you have plenty of cash and you can lower rates, so you don't need to raise rates, that none of these metrics are telling us that. And if we need to bring in other folks from the outside, of course, Rafthalis was here basically telling us that last year. So we've been spending a lot of our one-time cash, our reserves, our system development fees, old capital reserves on a lot of these projects going forward. So we'd already just talked about 45% of our customers are using the minimum or less, which is great that so many have benefited from that change going from 2,500 to 2,000 on the minimum. But the downside is it's costing us over $500,000 a year in revenue. And then questions have come up is like, did that change accomplish what we wanted? What we're seeing is that even folks in really expensive homes are using very small amounts of water. And so Rafthalis Financial Consulting, who's worked with us on the rate model, they are going to come back here in August or September and bring a study and present it to the board. And so you can start seeing, like, is the current minimum rate model, is that still our preference going forward? Or is the a base rate then charging volumetrically going forward like Owasso does? It's 55% of the units in North Carolina do what we do. 45% do the base and volumetric amount. There's not a right or wrong answer. There's pros and cons to each, but they will do the analysis and allow us to have a discussion and involve the community if that helps us be more stable or make sure we're providing assistance to the people who need it most. All right, the blue items are things that have been cut or deferred. Now, when I say that, there have been so many cuts and deferments that our utilities director, Marie Strandwitz, and Bryant Green from engineering have made. They probably can't keep track of all of them as well, because we've been continually pushing things out. When you're looking at the years 2 and 3 of the plan and the CIP, and it's frustrating when you have to push off replacement of 50 and 100-year-old infrastructure, but that's what we've been doing. You can see a lot of these are things you've already seen. So I won't go ahead and read through the list. But anyway, we're still have a lot on our plates moving forward and have deferred a lot. Same thing with wastewater collection. I don't think there's anything on here that's new or surprising. And Commissioner Ferguson taking pictures. I'll send you try to send a PDF of this when I get back over to my. Yeah, that's not a picture away, but it just reminded me. I'll send this to you so you can get a head start on reviewing some of these items. All right, then operations. We're getting close. It looks like the Adrian Thompson facility probably won't be ready to start construction due to some delays which is actually helpful in early 26, maybe January-ish. So that helps push off some debt service payments to the following year. But when they start, we're going to probably have $500,000 a year worth of debt service payments on that facility. Those are hitting. You can see some of the equipment that we're going ahead and replacing at the different locations. And the FEMA brick grant. And of course, as I mentioned in the email the end of last week, apologies for not having the budget ready for you tonight, or maybe even tomorrow. We may need another day to get it ready. It's like we lost at least 2 weeks when we got the news last month of losing the brick grant. So we were basically going through the entire financial plan. What are we going to do? What are we going to change? So ultimately, we just decided we can come up with like 30 different scenarios that are what if, and we're still not going to know what's going to happen. So basically, we're still holding the course on our plan and hoping that we will be able to get a substitute grant funding source, especially for the river pump station. This one's the emergency booster pump, where our WASA connection. You can see UNC Hospital there. It's located there. And then the other one, which is the bigger one, there's some pictures from the flooding. If anybody thinks that's a trivial need when you're like feet from having your major pumping station underwater on a regular basis, semi-regular basis, that's major concern. So we're going to continue working on that. If we do not get funding, especially for the river pump station, that's a game changer. Again, we could what if ourselves for hours tonight. We'll just work hard, go after these hazard mitigation funds that may be available that we can apply for by the end of the year. But we'll just this time next year, hopefully we'll be having a good conversation as opposed to one that puts us in a situation of having to find a lot more money. I will not go over this. Is basically an updated list of what are our strategies for long-term stabilization and minimizing the rate increases we have to go forward. All things that you've seen. Same thing. It's in the budget message. Just as a reminder, and I forgot we'll talk about water and sewer staffing levels. And you can see that our system customer base has probably grown by 60% during that time or more, but yet our staffing is almost the same as it was in 2004. There's not a huge amount of difference. So major applause to our employees in the water sewer operations who were able to do that. And then again, when you look at population growth versus our staffing, big difference. Emily did some research when we were talking about doing cost analysis on the general fund side. Was it 2011? We averaged, I forgot how many employees it was. Basically like 15 or 17 years ago, we have 2 less FTEs per capita per thousand population than we did. So we're servicing like 15, 20, probably 20% less staff per capita than we did 15 years ago. So she can pull up the number. I forgot to write it down. So going back to, we've really done a good job. We've had some peaks where we've hired people on, but we've really been holding things flat.
I was having a conversation of the mayor of the community in other states, and they are extremely limited on what they can charge and develop such, but they're able to, because everything was way over and above in their water and sewer contractors with the developers. They add essentially everything efficiency. Do we have that leeway of using that mechanism to its full advantage?
We do not have that leeway. So when we went through the last system development fee update, which we're required by statute to do every 5 years, there's a couple different options, and because my brain is not working, I can't recite them off. But there's a marginal and whatever. So they give us, you can do one, you can do the other, or you can do a hybrid of both. And basically that's it. And we try to maximize what we can do under whichever door we choose to go through. But slightly related to that, one of the suggestions that Marie Strandowitz, the utilities director, has said was like, now that we're getting better clarity on how things are shaking out with our CIP on the water and sewer side, and seeing it, and there's been some other changes, and with the development coming in, it may be worth our while to update the SDF study quicker and not just wait the 5 years. And because there could be some advantage, because not just we have the clarity, there may be some financial advantage to it because we can use a different methodology. But we don't have the leeway to add all these other things. The General Assembly is just really crimped down on it. It's almost formula driven.
Right. Because it's a right.
And then this gets into an area that I'll only touch briefly, and I may be wrong, so our attorney or other staff can chime in. When we do a water sewer extension agreement, there is some flexibility, but we've got to be able to have a rational nexus to like, oh, well, I'm going to make it up. And it's like, you're bringing in 50% more water or sewer, and therefore you're going to have to pay for this pump station or X percent. We've got the ability to do that, but we really can't be arbitrary in it. So that's the way we partially cover it. All right, I believe this is second to last slide. So as far as employee compensation goes, which you're going to hear more details about here shortly, we're basically doing what we did last year. $1,500 across the board COLA, merit of 3 to 5%, depending on what your score is on the merit program. And so that's the same. And we're going to hear more about the compensation study implementation, which is very, very similar to what we did 3 years ago. And it's not inexpensive what we're looking at, but it's a lot less expensive than what we had to do last time. I don't want to say the market's cooled off, but we did a better job of catching up, and we've been able to retain employees a lot better. And you can see what the changes are in health and dental insurance. That's the first health insurance increase in like 6 or 7 years, and it's only 2.3%.
Question, could you call out health and dental? Any increases with vision at all, or? No, thanks.
Thanks, Haley. Last slide is that, do we have an ETA on budget delivery? Roughly?
Tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay, all right, thanks. So got that. And just again, things have changed a lot. There was a big scramble with the brick situation, and we're going on. So don't worry about hurting our feelings. If you see something that looks like it's a mistake, because you're going to probably find some mistakes or errors or omissions or things that are in there, please let us know. It takes a village, so it's a lot of numbers and things. And again, don't hesitate to make suggestions and suggest cuts, deferments, ways to reinvent things that we do. Again, as usual, just if you've got ideas or questions, you can route them through me or the budget team. Because if you have a question as a board member, especially before we go in there, there's a good chance somebody else is going to want it. So when we'll respond to everybody. So everybody gets the benefit of learning from each other or seeing what's going on. And that kind of helps going forward. And just asking everybody to be flexible, including the staff, as we refine figures. And there's always some surprises, good and bad, as you go through it. And so I want to ask the staff, what did I forget or miscommunicate on?
I found the number you're looking for. So back in 2010, we had 9.4 FTEs per thousand population. And as of this year, we're down to 7.2 per thousand.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I know that was a lot of me standing up talking in front of you tonight, and I'll forward you the PDF. So.
Thank you, Rick. It's a challenging time. We appreciate the different cadence to the work that you and staff are having to do this time around. Budget, so thank you to everybody for being flexible and working overtime on that. So we appreciate it.
All right, thank you, and we'll do everything to support the board as you refine the budget going forward.
Any other questions, Rick, before we move on to the next?
Well, I do have a few questions. They're pretty quick. And this might be in your budget message, Eric, but with the projected deficits, will the budget message have? I think in your presentation you did kind of lay out what deficit would be. Your revenue control. I see there be no deficit, just other expenses, but how, like, what would it look like in terms of the bottom line number?
If we kept the rate the same at 60.7, Oh, well, that would add about $2 million a year of revenue. And so, yeah, that would wipe out the deficit issues.
And then just out of curiosity, would there be a budget benefit if we charge for, um, yard waste and solid waste? I think Durham does that, but would that just shift the number somewhere else, or would there be a positive budget impact?
So a great question, one that's come up over the years. So there's the short answer, it just shifts the burden. You're going to have your community is going to be spending the same amount. So
Just calling it out.
right. Let's just make up a number and say we charged enough for all the solid waste and it generated $1 million. Well, then you just charged, a monthly solid waste fee, you generate $1 million and you lowered your tax rate. So it's sort of a zero sum game. So one of the approaches that I guess that I've taken over the years, is that since we didn't have a separate enterprise fund for solid waste, which lots of places do, and it's definitely handy to have that extra dial, it would be great if we could wave a wand and make it happen. But you have to collect those funds, and it's problematic. So that means that puts more of a load on billing and collections. You probably have to hire another staff member. There's more time. It increases the cost of collecting those funds. Whereas we already have a built-in system. When you pay your property taxes, we pay Orange County a small percentage. So I don't think it's worth making the change, but I do think it's worth telling people because, for example, I live in, whatever city next door and our tax rate's only 46 cents. Well, if we charge for solid waste, we could say we had a 46-cent tax rate increase too, but people don't usually parse out that.
Kind of gimmicky to do it that way. And then, can you remind me when we implemented the placeholder for affordable housing, what year that was?
FY 24 was the first year that we officially started the ramp up.
So this is only our second fiscal year currently.
The year we're in now is the second year.
That's it. Thank you.
I'm just going to piggyback and talk more about our pay study or the classification and pay study that we've recently gone through. So we work with Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I'll refer to them as PTRC. We actually have Matt Reese, who's joined us virtually. So if we've got any tough questions, we'll have him answer those for us.
Very calm.
So this is just a list of the different jurisdictions that we looked at, or that PTRC looked at for this pay study, where we're located. A lot of our competitions in the Triangle area, and so we really wanted to make sure that we had a decent group of different jurisdictions to make sure that we stay competitive with the market.
I'm curious that we don't include that. And I see we've done really a good job about comparing folks, with the exception of Alamance, with them, Central Pines Con, but given we've lost staff to that, I'm a little surprised that what was the reason of not including that?
I don't know that I have a great answer. A lot of it depends on what data is available. Go ahead, Eric.
Maybe Matt can chime in. Like Mebane was on the list. I thought they were on the list because they're probably our best comp. So I will say a lot of times I don't know why they couldn't get the Mebane data. A lot of times they don't respond to the league. I mean, historically, going back decades, they wouldn't respond to the league survey and can't get it. So, but yeah, again, maybe Matt Reese can share why we didn't use them or we just couldn't get their data.
Matt, are you there?
Yes, we did. So I'm not sure if the graph here is as up to date as it should be, but we have Mebane's data in.
But Matt, if you're talking, we can't hear.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Can you hear me now?
Screen share.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now?
Did you say something, Matt?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Okay, one more time.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. So glad that happened. Yeah, I'm not sure that graph probably needs to be updated. I'm looking at a couple of your key benchmarks and Mebane is included. I don't know if that helps answer the question most directly. I can show a couple other stats if we need to, but Mebane has been included.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
And actually now I can see where you took off my glasses. On the count, is that count the staff? So
On-
it looks like all places being 3425 or something like that. In the total, so in the call out box in the map, in the legend, where it says count, that's your total staff. Is that
What this
accurate?
Yeah, what this is a graph of is places that folks residing in Hillsborough work. So it's basically a labor market shed graph. And then that call out that you see there is the actual percentages of employers and percentage in each of those. So if you look at the purple dots that are there, those are showing areas of concentration of employment for residents in Hillsborough. And the purpose of this graph is to give you an idea of what your labor market shed is. And then we're trying to repeat that, copy that in the public sector group that we're comparing you to.
So where it says Hillsborough Town 223, that means there are 223 municipal employees that may or may not be in Hillsborough, but may be in other jurisdictions also. Is that accurate?
No, what those are is that is a count of residents of Hillsborough that are then employed within the town, right? So then
Oh,
the
so
largest,
in town.
right, the largest employment by percentage and count there is Durham, and then the lowest is Carrboro.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah, and this is data that's put together by the American Community Survey that's part of the census process. That's the source.
Just an overview, we really started this process back in October. We had an orientation for employees. And then from there, we had our position description questionnaires or PDQs that were due in December. And that every position, so almost every employee had to complete a PDQ, which goes into a lot of detail about their duties and responsibilities and what's required for them to perform their work in their position. Then from there, our PTRC analysts, they did interviews of at least one person in every town position. And that helped them gather more information, like based off of the PQs and the interviews to really get a good understanding of what our employees do in each position. And that helps them conduct the analysis and make sure that they are looking at positions that are similar or comparable to what we have. And they completed that analysis. They came to us with a few implementation options. And so now we're here
for sending that to you all. And if it is approved or when it is approved, the implementation employees would see that in July. There are a lot of different pieces that go into classification, and this is a lot of what PTRC, the information I got from those PDQs and those interviews from each employee to help determine or make those recommendations on how to adjust different positions' pay based on these different factors. So as I mentioned, PTRC, they did give us a few different options, and the one that we are recommending, we feel like is the best option for most of the employees, as well as the best fit for the organization. And as Eric mentioned earlier, it's very similar to the implementation that we did about 3 years ago. And so that is a 2.5% increase in salary per grade adjustment. So this example on the slide, got an equipment operator who's currently in grade 3. So if they move to grade 4, then employees that are in that equipment operator position will receive a 2.5 increase. And if we have a position that goes from a 3 to a 5, then employees in those positions would receive 5% increase. We'll have some positions that are not going to see an increase because we're already paying them competitively with the market. I believe it was about 20% or less than 20% of employees that may not, or that won't see an increase because of their current pay. It's already being competitive.
Question, and so on that third bullet point, 96% to market, that's 90% of the town employees to market in fiscal year 26.
So that third bullet point, so we'll take a step back. So what that means currently, based off the minimum of where our salaries are, taking into consideration of all the positions, we're at 96% of the market. So that means we're lagging, we're a little bit behind in our pay. And so the adjustments that we're gonna make for FY26, with this recommendation, it brings that up, or us up to 102%. So slightly leading the market.
So that's like the average, with the average of the minimum salary, we were just below that, and this would move us just over.
Right.
Okay.
So we're not far off from market rate, but with the proposal, we'll go slightly ahead of market rate for really competitiveness reasons there.
Yes, and this is just looking at all the positions together, and then like individual positions are gonna have slightly different numbers and how competitive they are with that market. So the implementation cost for this option that we are recommending is about $258,000 just for the salary increases. And then benefits on top of that is about an additional 27%.
And the 27% for benefits, I assume that ties back to the benefits that are driven by salary, like 401k. Okay.
So as part of the study, we also looked at all the elected officials' pay as well. And one thing that we found that you'll see in the next slides is that we're behind in the market with paying our elected officials, but the recommendation is to have $1,000 increase for the commissioners and mayor. So here's some of the jurisdictions that we looked at and the information that we did get. The highlighted jurisdictions are the ones that we really paid closer attention to. And so we can see what that average is, that we're pretty below that. However, increasing the commissioners by $1,000, that gets us a little closer to those that are highlighted.
Oh, I just, when we were talking about it, I first realized like, elected official salary, since you're voting on it, you could come under, like, he go, oh, you just gave yourself $1,000 raise, but one of the things we were discussing is like, you're still the lowest paid, even if it's $1,000, you're still the lowest paid out of like that entire group. So it's like, yeah, you got a raise, but you're still, lower, get paid less. So hopefully that allows the board to defend. So of course, you can adjust that however you want, but that was just our quick recommendation on what to consider.
And we're the smallest jurisdiction of that group, right? Compared to that group.
Looks that way.
How many salaries have? I know some friends who, when they first got elected to some of these bodies, and they were making. Like Chapel Hill used to be 17 grand. And now it's up to 26. That was about a decade ago. So some of these have jumped up a lot in the last several years.
And also got the mayor pro tem information.
I would have to compare the two slides, but I assume some of these are, Durham County obviously doesn't have a mayor pro tem, but do some municipalities pay their mayor pro tem a little bit more than normal council member?
Yes, let's see, whenever
I was trying to compare
I
them.
would say it looks like it's like Mebane the same.
Greensboro, was-
Chapel Hill, that Chapel Hill was the same. There was a couple others,
I know Greensboro is one that stood out. They're paying a little bit more for the mayor pro tem than those commissioners. And in Raleigh. And we've got this last slide comparing or showing the different mayor salaries.
Then for the counties up there, is that just what the pay of the county commissioner chair is making? You know?
I believe
assume that's
so,
what that
yeah.
is.
So you're saying that each county commissioner gets $23,100 paid?
That's the chair.
That's what,
the mayor's getting.
the mayor,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Go back, do you have one for commission? Is that for, what's the county commissioners, do you have that?
22.
That county commission?
22,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at Hillsborough. Looking at Hillsborough.
The other
Okay,
page was-
okay, $26,000 is a lot of money.
The other page was the chair of the region.
Yeah, they have a lot to do.
Right there.
I'm just looking at the amounts.
Eric or Jen, did y'all wanna add anything?
No, I didn't look at the title of the Chapel Hill, I was curious. That's okay. Yeah, I didn't look at mayor and never mind. I just mislooked. Or whatever the word.
Any more questions for Haley on this? I have a quick one, and that is, what is the frequency with which we review these pay studies?
We're doing them every 2 years. We're trying to do that on a schedule, so we're staying competitive and up to date with
Seems
the
like
market.
before the pandemic, it wasn't as frequent, but after.
No, we weren't on a regular schedule before the pandemic, but now we're trying to get on that, especially after seeing what happened during the pandemic and how competitive everything was going.
Well, it also seems to me that doing it on a schedule really shields us from real budgetary shocks. And then also because of, well, I know Orange County living wage isn't a thing anymore. But if we're gonna keep pace with living wage and whatnot, we would need to do it more frequently, I would think.
Thank you.
Thank you. I said.
Thank you, Matt, for joining us online and helping answer questions.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you folks for having me. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Matt. Thank
Aha,
you.
bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to, the strategic plan update. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. The night of presentations, we're here for our Q3 update, of the strategic plan. So in the agenda packet, you'll find, as we've done with past updates, a status for each of the initiatives that we have, for initiatives that we are committed to do in FY 25. And so we can just go, if you all are okay with proceeding this way, just focus area by focus area and seeing if there's any questions. All right. So we'll get started with the sustainability initiative. And as in the past, I know these are really tiny, just kind of meant to more so guide the conversation than really referencing it. But I have some documents here too, if we need to reference specific initiatives, and we have representation from various departments. So if there's any questions, we can provide some responses. But any questions related to sustainability?
Now, I'm glad to see, I remember when we started this and there was many green flags, and so it's nice to see that they changed the color and you guys are knocking those out on a regular basis.
Yeah, and there's a lot in under sustainability, so yeah, definitely good to see a lot of those greens.
Bless you.
We can move on to connected community, and I know that one only has 2 initiatives. But any questions on either of those? All right. We'll move to economic vitality. Any questions on any of those updates provided?
So, saw that comment, I guess it's EB 3.1 about moving this over to communications. It seems like to me that would be the place where it would be best, but I'm curious if there are plans to do that or.
Not currently, but I think that that's something that as we get into more of the accessibility requirements that we'll be needing to comply with, we'll have those conversations about kind of where we'll have that conversation of where that initiative falls really fits well. But that was something that I think had been proposed as a potential place to slot it in, but I'm not sure that there's been any internal conversations with the communications team to formally move it. But I know the communications division has been doing a lot of work around translating different aspects of our communications to Spanish. So there's definitely some coordination potential there. All right. Community safety. Any questions on those initiatives?
I will say this, where I see the tabletop exercise, that is screaming pre-mortem and swan dive. It'll be a hell of a lot faster.
What would you say?
So they're analysis methodologies that extraordinarily effective, faster, more complete.
Thank you.
To do those instead of doing a tabletop.
Yep.
So you're saying to not do a tabletop?
No, because you're doing, the tabletop is only gonna do partial of what swan dive or pre-mortems will do. You would have multiple pre-mortems.
So, there's a management saying yes and?
And, yeah,
So the reason for doing a tabletop is to understanding the mechanics and how do we actually communicate with one another?
okay,
And then do the record keeping and fill out the, you know, the different forms and processes, especially to make sure we can get Orange County and other folks what we
Okay.
need. So that's why, you know,
Gotcha.
so yes and.
gotcha. And there's been some improvement on, pre-mortem too.
Okay, cool.
Mayor Mark?
Under 2.1, regarding the, complete the refresh of the emergency operations plan. I see that, you know, we're working with Orange County with that, but do we have any kind of update from Orange County on the status of that?
I know that we had the, contract in place for it and, I think one of the first steps, wasn't it, there's like an upcoming workshop to do,
Yeah, we actually have we have a workshop this week
yep.
for, threat hazard identification. So all of the parties in the EOD updates are working together, a two-part workshop, one this week and one next week. Work is underway.
Great, thank you.
I have one question to that too, so, you aware of that extreme heat, thing that Orange County's been putting together with different municipalities and stuff, for, you know, where people can get air conditioning in the summer and so on and so forth. Are we participating in that at all as a town, do you know?
We're part of that cohort and, Phil, our, safety and risk manager, is here and he's part of that cohort. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to share related to our efforts with that program.
Well, we have the plan in place. Where it's almost, we're keeping it like a live document, this is the first season that we're going through. With Orange County, with their alert program and everything, we have a lot of information going out to the citizens to tune into the Orange County alert. Because they'll be putting out, if you sign up for it, they'll give you all the stages of the heat, you know, it's gonna be different stages. And then we have different things that are gonna kick in once we get to those stages. You know, there'll be information on where the cooling centers are, there'll be information on, you know, how to stay cool or where to get to go to the help. So it's a work in progress thing. This first season, you know, we'll have a chance to actually kick it in. We're actually handling this pretty much like an emergency operations thing. Where as something kicks in, we're gonna have different meetings to see how things go. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, an extra, Phil is a man of many talents and, he came to us from a city just outside of Phoenix. So they had a lot, so he's brought a lot of heat expertise to our staff, which we're grateful for.
Definitely sends out, an email at the start of and during the heat season with all of the beefing up the resources that, we have available for staff to, try to have relief from the heat, because we're definitely seeing hotter days.
That's great.
Anything else related to community safety? All right, last one is, service excellence.
And that was gonna be the other thing on, from the risk of failure, just, again, I was looking at that from a red teaming perspective, but I was not clear if it was looking at like, physical, like pipes breaking type failure, analysis of physical breaks, or looking at that risk of failure from, you know, a holistic perspective where it inclusive of physical process, people, what was meant by identifying the risk of failure.
Which number was that?
1.2.
The
The yellow flag, top one.
So Brightly is just that asset management software, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. That'd be a Marie question. So.
I think it's more on like equipment and everything.
Yeah.
The equipment in there, you know, and all this other.
Yeah, like I said, that the physical rather.
I remember from.
That's what I,
Explain, yeah.
I knew that the software was, but when I'm looking at asset management planning, I'm also thinking that, well, holistically, it's more so, and then that's what got my brain working. It's like, well, wait a minute, are we talking about just from a physical asset or looking at that plan, that holistic approach?
No, I guess I hear about it. I'll look it up.
So are we still waiting on the information transition?
The implementation is underway. So they're moving through various departments.
Gotcha.
Utilities has been working with them, Public Works has been working with them.
Thanks.
And I was looking at, a couple things, especially like 3.1. And that's where if we have on-prem, where you can actually, you can, OpenGov AI, that'll knock that out very fast. Like instantaneously. But within the VPN, so it's not leaking out confidential, where individual people are being out to the grand world of AI.
In terms of helping develop strategies.
Well, you're looking at the representation where people are, where people are, that sort of thing. AI does that very fast. But from a security standpoint, it has to be an on-prem system, or whether it's OpenGov AI, an on-prem instance, so that sensitive information isn't released.
Right, yeah, and I know with, I know we've talked a little bit about this, but with like Microsoft Copilot, we're able to, put parameters around the data that goes back into the external environment and like what, specific data you allow for it to come in, like what it's basing the AI on. Is it just your system, or does it allow it to go external? And then also your data, is it staying within your environment versus external? So there's definitely ways of setting parameters for kind of what happens to your data with various options, but.
Other questions?
No, there's several things on here that I can see that once we start applying AI and AI tools, it's going to be game changing.
Yeah, much to learn with how we can really fully leverage it.
Robert Hyatt's, he is, like I said, it's worthwhile doing.
Mhm. All right, so, I think this is an old chart because we've already done the budget retreat, but, so this is our Q3 update budget presentation. Our next check-in will be our final reporting for, the work that was done in this calendar year. So that'll be in August, and then we'll be moving into our third year of the 3-year plan. So, making progress, and we'll be shifting the date to initiatives that were set to be completed in FY26 next year. Eric.
Oh, so does that mean that the retreat next year will be focusing on building the next 3-year plan?
Yes, so yeah, it'll be time to really be thinking through the next iteration. Because we'll already be in that final year of implementation, so.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And a lot of work.
Well, I just appreciate the quarterly updates and seeing it, of course, on slides. It's really tiny, so people are reading at home on Zoom or YouTube. It's always available as part of our agenda packet, but I think it's very easy to follow. Things that get delayed make a lot of sense, and the number of green flags, I think, should show people that our local government does a lot. And this goes to telling our stories about things. We don't just
has plans to put them on a shelf to collect dust. But doing them 3-year increments, I think makes a lot of sense, and y'all are doing a lot. I think year one, each quarter, we always had like a handful of red flags, and now it's mostly green and yellow, which I think is amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for the support. And I know
And thank you to the staff for reporting to you, for your like harassing people, like, get your updates.
no, I mean, they've done a really good job of, getting their updates in without me having to do much follow-up. So, yeah, it's been really helpful. Like, they've stayed on top of things as well. And we tried something new this time with the minimizing the amount of updates and consolidating that quarter 1 and 2, just because that's where we found there weren't as many updates in that first quarter. So hopefully that helped, just from a kind of all around, from a staff perspective, as well as like, you all reviewing, and really getting into like when we have gotten into really implementation of some of these initiatives. But if there's any feedback that you all have as far as that frequency, or if you want to see something different, just always open it, that feedback.
I do have one quick question. This might be an Eric or a Haley question, but and I just thought of it because of the budget presentation, but you know, meeting these benchmarks with strategic plan and having things, you know, move down the line, does that feed into individual employees, like merit increases, like where we are on things like the strategic plan and in their area of work?
So I would say it depends on which employees, like folks that are at like the department head level. When we're doing the different categories, then that'd be something I take into consideration as the whole of like quality and quantity of work. And then it'd probably the case is similar on the manager level, which is the division head level. And then probably like, you know, less so. I think, you know, your line level folks here, you know, they've got different priorities to focus.
Yeah, with employees have flexibility, you can set goals for the upcoming year with your supervisor, or you can like have a work plan for the upcoming year. And so I know some employees, some of these things may make its way into those like work plan of initiatives that they're wanting to accomplish. So if so that's another way through the not everyone has initiatives they're working on, but there's definitely employees that have and would integrate that as like a goal for the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to hot topics.
Trying to find it. Page is that?
100 of 107.
Oh, thank you.
Second workshop.
Yeah.
For budget.
Right, so at this point, we don't have anything else on Matt. There was something there.
The only other thing that will need to be on that agenda is there's a second resolution related to the NC 86 financing that needs to happen at that meeting.
And I will not be there. I'll be on another continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good excuse.
So usually we don't, usually at that one, we're not having we're usually able to get everything done in the first workshop night, so I hope that was fine. Finally done that.
Well, are you comfortable not being here for that meeting, or would you rather schedule another meeting?
No, I think we're fine. If the board determines, we need a second budget workshop to work through additional issues. I mean, usually those are, the staff has specific expertise in that area. And, Matt will sit in for me and say, I would not wait on that. So, like sometimes you would want to keep the ball rolling because there may be additional, time that we need to get stuff ready for budget adoption night stuff.
Thank you. Okay, updates. Yeah, can we start with you?
Sure. Which is good because I think y'all will mention at least, two of these. So attended the State of the Community on Wednesday for the Chapel Chamber. I think there was a lot of good data that was shown, and I think in particular Hillsborough really kind of shown with our balance with a whole host of things, but in particular, the difference between commercial and residential property. And we continue to show growth there, so that's awesome. I did attend most of City Vision with Commissioner Ferguson and Commissioner Dara. Did have to dip out a day early on that, but I thought it was really, really good. And there were a lot of sessions around housing and zoning that I thought were particularly helpful, especially one that the School of Government did, which was really kind of a different way of looking at affordable housing and the issue of housing and being really about what it is that we mean about housing. And there's 4 different ways to look at it, but what do we actually have control over? Which I think is good. And a big takeaway there was, you know, aligning ordinances with what we want as policy. And the presenter kind of highlighted that often what communities say they want as policy doesn't match the ordinance and vice versa. So as we review our DDO, that'll be very interesting. Also attended the Young Elected Officials Network Conference, which the town did not pay for. It was great to go, so I want to clear that up. I didn't want someone thinking I was in Washington, DC, attending an official town function, but it was also interesting the number of young elected officials around the country who are tuned into housing and housing policy and looking at housing regulation. And normally when I go to this conference, there is a lot of perspectives from home rule states, which we are not one of those. And it was really good and refreshing, particularly as more people attend this conference from the South who are like, oh, wait, we're a Dillon's rule state. We don't have all those nifty little tools in our toolbox, and some really creative thinking and information sharing occurred. So I was happy. Because of a trip back in March, I did not get to go to the Carborough branch library opening, and I needed a new library card. So I drove down to Carborough. That is a really nifty building, and was very happy. I think that might be the next place I do my remote work here and there. And this weekend I'll be at the 51st anniversary celebration / gala for the Arts Center. They're doing an Area 51 theme to go with their 51st. Don't know how hard in paint I'll go with that. Maybe they'll just get some alien antenna for me. But then also the Travel Carborough NAACP are having their Freedom Fund luncheon and Extraordinary Adventures that I'll be at. So busy time.
Yeah, rough time. Wow. I actually have no reports. We got a climate council meeting coming up this Thursday on the 15th, and then Parks and Recreation Board meeting next Tuesday on the 20th. And no reports.
Great. I'll just give 2 updates on appointed boards. The first is, well, it's not an appointed board, but so we do a quarterly meeting with NCDOT in Orange County. So it's kind of like the TPO, but just for Orange County. Matt and Stephanie were there at that meeting, and my takeaway from that meeting was, hey, that was the best attended quarterly meeting that I've been to. There's standing room only, it seems like. Then I was really impressed with the amount of communication, collaboration, and spirit of let's get things done as quickly as possible between DOT and the municipalities. So Stephanie represented, Matt represented us very well there. The other thing is also, of course, attended the State of the Community address. I have not seen the final version of the data book from that, but anybody, staff who are interested, in anybody online watching this now or recorded later, the Carolina Chamber does an annual State of the Community with hundreds of slides regarding Orange County, how we compare, the various municipalities stack up compared to others, and it's just really informative. That helps tell the story of who we are in the context of Orange County and how Orange County is related to other counties and other cities around the country as well.
So that's it.
Okay, so, city vision, yes, Commissioner Hughes, very informative sessions. I attended, some of the leadership, disaster recovery, pieces, especially in strategic planning. It's interesting, that Nightdale has an arrangement with University of Alabama online where they are going through and it's getting professional certificates on a certain level of planning, and they fund the rest of it because it's half of a master's program. Found out $6,000 per student, which out of state tuition, I was actually astounded. But they have elevated the level of strategic planning in Nightdale, beyond what I've been seeing, through the other jurisdictions over time. I've got some meetings set up with Jessica Day and, I just lost his name, I'm gonna say Summers. Because they're interested in red teaming and combining what they're doing together. Did a tour of all of their greenways. I think we did one of the parks, or did we do the entire? I did the entire greenways, and so I was fascinated. They have friends, they call it friends of our greenways. Which that group actually does a tremendous millions of dollars worth of maintenance, construction, publicity, a full range of services.
It's a volunteer group.
It is a volunteer group. It's people who were passionate about connectivity in greenways and said, we're going to form our group and we're going to help out. And they have their public art. It is a competition and you have to pay. And it's changed out every year. And so they have concrete pads, like small concrete pads, and every year the sculpture installations go in. It's another funding thing. A lot of naming rights on benches, on the golf carts, on the pieces and parts of the physical structures going into the greenways in the park. They're getting ready to replace the bulkhead that's on the Tar River, tremendous amount of funding. They found out that the bridge, which was steel bridge, was physically moved, and that's where they now hold events on. And they just learned that in the process, it was cheaper for them to restore and move that bridge than it was to demolish it, which I found fascinating. I also did the African American Heritage Tour, which is something I think would work extraordinarily well in Hillsborough. This tour is not a walking tour. You will have to drive, and it's not when you're going to do a bike. You will end up driving, and in places around the sites, either where there is structure, but most of them, the structures are gone. It's a site, and the storyboards, interpretive signs are there. They've created brochures that they distribute to folks. They now have that tour, do-it-yourself tour, hooked into the website of Overall Tourism. They coordinate, so when there are festivals, concerts, art events, things like that, they'll coordinate with that. They found that within the first year, they were getting not only economic development from, heads and beds and food and beverage, but they were finding that it was drawing talent into the community. Very much. But, we have our sites in the history. It's as these areas develop their own, connecting together so that it's regional. And what they are doing is they really are, they're expanding into neighboring counties, other areas of the state are doing that. So that is something that, I am hopeful that given, the African-American history that's in our community, it is rich. Their signage, I mean, this tour is, I want to say 6 sites, maybe 7 sites, not that many. I think about our community and we would easily have 10, 12 instantaneously.
Is that a county thing or?
No,
City?
it's a city. They are pitching to bring in the county and then surrounding. It began as a visitors bureau project, one person championing it. It now is, everyone pitches in. It's been around, I think if memory serves, I want to say 5 or 6 years. But I found it extraordinary that they have seen continued growth and they can tie pretty expansive, visitors and, true economic prosperity coming into the community. I also had the opportunity to present women in municipal government to the North Carolina Mayor's Association. So that was fun and really excited about the leadership of the league coming in. So Martha Sue Hall out of Albemarle, I never can say that well, Albemarle. Close enough, Mayor Pro Tem.
Albemarle.
I cannot get that out. She's also on the forum, which is the state, so I'm really excited about the league and what we're doing. I did notice that when they were talking about communities supporting Western North Carolina, we didn't have our pictures included, so I took pictures. I want to make sure that if they're updating that, our pictures definitely do get included. And the one thing too, this year was the first year, excuse me. Sorry, my asthma is just bonkers. There were a few communities that have taken the pledge and completed the commitment to civility. I would like us to do that. We already embody that, our practices, our behaviors already. But to go that extra bit where we sign the pledge, I forgot what else is involved, but it is a formal recognition of our boards and each individual commissioner's commitment to civility and governance. So that's the partnership is actually meeting, excuse me. Partnership in homelessness is meeting next Monday. Budget that they did recommend to all board members was the expanded budget. The local government affordable housing collaborative, the comprehensive, I have to look at their comprehensive housing. Let me get the title right before I butcher it. Whoops. It's the consolidated plan that it's addressing home as the community block grant. One of the things is the home funds, they're just under 400,000, not a whole lot. And so staff's recommendation is to focus on TBRA, which is your rental assistance and home repairs, as opposed to unit development. However, the plan as a whole recognizes, yes, there's the commitment for unit development, unit preservation, and the annual action plan. So the collaborative has made their votes to bring those two plans that this board and the other boards will see for adoption. And the Council of Governments will be meeting next week. Taylortown is our newest member. That brings us to 50. We just have one left for them, so, and that will come.
So that in the Pine Needler
Yep.
last week.
Yes. So that's something that, I've been hammering on for a couple of years now, and I'm like, yes. So that's all for you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, not true. I will not be here, June 8th. The, National Association of Regional Councils, that's our annual board retreat in Seattle. So I will be gone, that Monday.
Thank you.
There, not done.
Megan.
I also attended City Vision with Commissioner Hughes and Ferguson. As both had mentioned, a lot of good sessions. I also attended the affordable housing that was given by the staff and the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem of Durham. Really interesting what they had done in their changes to facilitate affordable housing in their community. Also the State of Community, attended that, always a lot of good data, and I think they said July is, I believe the email said that it was gonna come out. Is it, I don't know if that's the same thing you might remember, but,
The data book is out, and I forgot I did.
or at least
attend that.
email to us then.
It's already been emailed out.
I've got the slides.
Yeah,
okay.
I got the slides, but I don't think the
Then-
date.
Oh,
Then
okay.
they'll tweak and do the full thing.
Yeah,
Missed that.
They
yeah,
said-
I'm gonna say June or July, it was a J. And
And I
then,
did get the slides.
yeah. The upcoming, two budget hearings coming up for the TDA and the tourism board within the next couple of weeks. Can't think of the calendar right now, maybe the next 3 weeks. And then this weekend I'll be attending the Port Hillsborough Garden Party and Tea Event fundraiser. That's all the updates I have.
Thank you, Megan. Evelyn.
Well, fire department meets this Thursday, so I have a choice, to go to the fire department meeting, or do I come to the joint public meeting with the town and the planning board?
They're gonna pick you up.
And I'm going to come to the joint public, it's too important. The fire department, Eric, do you want me to start on the next developer on getting a ladder truck?
I need to think about that. Can you be more specific?
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
But if one comes along that aggravates me, like the one that I worked, aggravated him so, and he said, we're a nonprofit, we can't give you a dime. Oh, I'll never forget that, but we got money from Waterstone, so.
Yeah. The short answer is yes, we'll take all the fire truck money that you can round up for us, so thank you.
See any developer that aggravates me, I will start on them for a ladder truck.
Sounds good.
Well, I go by Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus every time I am back in Alabama, because I have to pass both campuses going from my sister's to my dad's. And it is wicked cool. If you're ever there, you don't need to make an appointment for a tour. You just show up. And I remember when it was a single fire truck that the dude had gotten for his daughter. And now there are two campuses.
Thank you. That you've mentioned that before. Eric.
No report.
Staff reports are in the agenda, including the quarterly police report. Thank you very much, Jason. Any other business before the board?
Question regarding, Chief Wynn's report. So it said, maybe I read it wrong. I thought it said Q1. I know it wasn't, but, you might want to.
This is a calendar year for internal purposes, but it is Q3, Q4.
Yeah, okay.
We'll just do the month range going forward, so that way it's a little easier to digest. You're not the first person.
It actually makes sense to me, year, Q1, so I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Have a good night.